Assalamu alaikum, and greetings of peace, and welcome to all of you who have come here today. My name is Mayor Rashid Clark, and I am the current mayor of Holy Islamberg, located in Hancock, New York. And we have invited you today to make a statement on the recent plot that was uncovered to do harm, to commit violent acts, and to kill residents of Holy Islamberg. I'd like to begin in the name of the Almighty Creator, the Creator of all of the prophets, whom we believe in, and whom we follow, and whom we love. The prophets Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, son of Mary, and the holy last prophet, Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon them all. We welcome you here today, and I'd just like to state that Holy Islamberg is a small community made up of about 200 residents, mostly women, children, we have elderly, and we are part of the normal community. We are citizens of the United States. We are functioning residents. We hold jobs. We are doctors, lawyers, engineers, construction workers. We're normal people in everyday life. And this is just a tragic event that hurts our hearts, that someone would want to plot to cause harm yet again to a peaceful, loving community. The community was founded in maybe the early 80s by our parents who just decided to remove their children from a bad environment. We grew up in the inner cities of Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Long Island, and that's just a common sense thing to do. If you can't stop the crime, then remove yourself from the environment, remove yourself from the crime. So that's how Holy Islamberg was founded. And we continue on to live in peace and to raise our children in a wholesome way, to live off the land. They call it homesteading. We grow crops, we raise animals, and we live like law-abiding citizens. Unfortunately, there are those who don't know this, and they'd like to paint another picture, a different picture of us, which will never stick, which we will never accept. They feed into what we call Islamophobia, which is the fear of Islam, which is a religion of peace. I'd like to introduce you to the Chief Executive Officer of the Muslims of America, Incorporated, Khalifa Hussein Adams.
Good afternoon to you all. Greetings and peace from the Muslims of America. We thank all the members of the media, community members, and concerned citizens for your attendance today. I would like to say a special thank to our neighbors, our friends, co-workers, schoolmates, our interfaith partners, some of which are here standing with us today, for your overwhelming and continuous support and comfort that you have provided for the community of Islamberg during this difficult time and all of the difficult times that we have faced. Let us be clear, the terrorist threat against Islamberg by the 4 current suspects in Greece, New York, is about hatred towards Islam and hatred towards American Muslims. Islamophobia, as we have mentioned in the past, has proven to be a lucrative business, a business that trades in hate and produces terrorists bent on executing their nefarious plots to destroy Muslims, even their fellow Americans. The misuse of social media and the internet to spread lies has plagued the community of Islamberg and all of the TMOA locations for well over a decade. For years, TMOA fought back, rebuttal after rebuttal, but the Islamophobes persisted with their propaganda by flooding the internet with no regard for how their lies would affect the life of the children, men and women who reside there. Many have made fortunes and sought fame on defaming Islamberg, including known Islamophobes like Ryan Morrow, Martin Moyer, and others, both of which fixated their targets on Islamberg, then proceeded to produce and spread wildly false information disguised as news and patriotism. The Greece Police Department has arrested 4 people for a plot to bomb our community. But there's reason to believe, as stated by law enforcement yesterday, that there are more suspects to locate. Additionally, the arrested suspects have been charged with felonies, including 3 counts of first-degree criminal possession of a dangerous weapon and 1 count of 4th-degree conspiracy. Where are the terrorism charges? It goes without saying, and we have said in the past, that this is a double standard. Had Muslims been plotting to build bombs to harm any other communities, there would be a sweeping investigation into the radicalization of the suspects, as well as the network of criminals that supported the plot, because a plot of this magnitude has many conspirators. If our families are to be safe, we want all perpetrators caught and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We must begin to hold those Islamophobes accountable for provoking others by spreading lies, baseless accusations, and misinformation about American Muslims. I had a conversation with a few law enforcement officers yesterday, and I made it, I stated that the individuals whom arrested, I can guarantee you they've never even been or visited Hancock, New York, much less Islamberg. They don't know the people of Islamberg. They don't know who resides there. They know nothing about their faith. They're uneducated in that regard and ignorant. But the misinformation that is spread and the misuse of social media and the internet has caused this to continue. This false propaganda is designed to incite hate and fear with the hope of causing a clash between Muslims and people of other faiths by continuing to perpetrate a false narrative that Muslims are the enemy. We had a biker rally a few years ago in where people, residents from neighboring villages, towns, and other communities, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, visited and came to Islamberg and stood by our side and the residents of Islamberg to condemn and speak out against the ongoing hatred and propaganda that has continued and has caused others to attempt to take the law into their own hands. The lies about Islamberg have been proven wrong countless times, but what speaks volumes is that after 30 years, there have been no instances where members of our community have done anything related to these accusations. It has not happened. American Muslims have to act like one body, one soul, in order to survive all these terrorist attacks and attempts. We must continue to open dialogue to avoid misinterpretations of what it is to be a Muslim. The stakes are too high. What if they were successful? in their plot in attacking us in our community, what would have happened then? The loss of life would be unbearable. The conflict that could be created between Muslims and Christians all over the United States, unimaginable. No one would have been able to stop that. We don't want that. We have worked decades towards better understanding between Muslims and Christians and Jews and other faiths. Our programs and events over the years have built and established unity amongst all people of faith. If we have to start living on the defensive, it could create mass rioting and problems within America, causing chaos, causing civil unrest that feeds into the hands of those who wish to use chaos as a way of mass control in order to take away a people's human and civil rights. Every day we see the ongoing Islamophobic, xenophobic, and racist rhetoric that this current administration has fueled. But this is our country. Our ancestors helped build this nation. Our fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers were Muslim veterans who fought in wars and protected every American's right to free speech, freedom of press, and freedom of religion, as guaranteed to us in the U.S. Constitution. We want peace in our own country, and so we suffer quietly. We rely on and appreciate that law enforcement and the government do their duty to protect us from these elements. We have an ongoing relationship with law enforcement on the local, state, and federal level. But our living quietly and minding our own business should not be taken as a weakness. We are neither weak nor are we cowards. We are afraid of nothing because we believe that the one Almighty Creator is sufficient to help us through any situation. Muslims believe that no harm should reach anyone from their lands, from their hands. But if it comes to defending our lives, if it comes to protecting our children, we will stand against oppressors like a rock. Under all circumstances, we will seek help and continue to seek assistance from our law enforcement partners whom have worked with us, and that communication and ongoing dialogue and work up until today, as you can see, continues. Islam has risen in the United States of America. American Muslims have been here for centuries. American Muslims are an important part of society with upstanding citizens, lawyers, doctors, teachers, nurses, police officers, social workers. That concludes my brief statement. I would just lastly like to make mention think about the ongoing impact that this has created for the residents of Islamberg, whom are active residents, citizens, and have contributed tremendously to their society. They are affected. As American citizens, they are affected. And if we don't work together as a community in unison, then we will have more challenges in the future. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Assalamu alaikum.
We thank you very much, Khalifa Hussein Adams. And before we welcome the next speaker, I would just like to say that the community of Islamberg is once again in shock. If you are wondering how we feel, just imagine waking up and having to tell your children of such a plot. Tell your children that their lives were in danger. One of the reports, one of the officers explained one of the devices that they had seized, and he said, if this was used, point blank, he said, if this was used, people would have died. That's a shock. What I found even more shocking, or in addition to that, I found in one of the articles that these perpetrators or conspirators were members of the Boy Scouts of America. And we have our own Boy Scouts. We call them the Muslim Scouts of America. And we have taken points out of the Boy Scouts of America's manual to follow. We have taught our young men to be courteous, to be kind, to be helpful to their neighbors. After 9/11, our scouts were at ground zero. We handed out water to the rescue workers, to those teams that were going in and out. We went as close as they would allow us to get. Hurricane Katrina, we were there. Our scouts were there. The floods of the Southern Tier that we have all experienced, 2006, 2011, we were there. Ask our neighbors. We were there. Our children participate in the sports events. And when we mention our doctors, we have resident doctors living on Islamberg. They have delivered the children in the Southern Tier. So we are a big part of this community. And if this plan, God protect us all, the Almighty Creator protect us all from these things, but if this plan was to have went through, members of your community would have been harmed. Members of your community would have been killed. So we just hope that you share and you feel some of the anguish and some of the shock that we feel. I'd like to introduce Sayyid Sultan Shah Gilani, who will give an interfaith statement.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you all, and greetings from the Muslims of America. As Muslims, we believe in the Almighty Creator and all of His noble prophets and messengers, including Adam, Noah, Ibrahim, Moses, Jesus, son of Mary, and the Holy Last Messenger, Muhammad, peace be upon him, them all. Our faith guides our everyday living and provides us with a peaceful way of life. Direct plot against our community comes from hatred of Muslims, which is born from ignorance. This ignorance is used by Islamophobes to fuel animosity between Muslims and Christians, who together make up half of the world's population. To them, I say, declare what you follow. Many of these people declare they are Christians who must fight against Muslims. But those people who hate Muslims, those people who plot to murder innocent women, men, and children, to what religion do they belong? Many are atheists and also do not believe in Jesus, son of Mary, peace be upon him. Because if they believe and follow Jesus, then they should know that He is also a prophet of Islam. Jesus is the one who said, if someone slaps you on one side, then you give him the other. Jesus, son of Mary, is full of mercy. This is a common factor between Muslims and Christians. So then, on what grounds do they have to sow the seed? Oh, we only ask one question. Do you know Jesus, son of Mary? Do you follow him? We do. As Muslims, we believe in and we follow him. Whilst others may not know whether or not he existed, it is in Holy Quran that his miraculous virgin birth and his mission are confirmed. Muslims and Christians around the world will not be fooled by attempts to bring separation when their faiths are two aspects of the same reality. The solution is clear. We must increase interfaith dialogues, open avenues of discussion, embrace religion diversity in America, and prosecute those who would assault Americans just because of their faith. Enjoy. Thank you. And God bless the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Saeed Sultan Shah. You know, I'd like to take this time to thank our co-workers. I'm speaking on behalf of my community. We'd like to thank our co-workers, our peers, who have given us have reached out and given us an overwhelming amount of support. One of the calls I got this morning was from my co-workers who said, don't worry about coming to work today. We see what you're dealing with. This disrupts our lives. So now, the livelihood that we earn as law-abiding citizens and hard workers in this country is on hold for a minute because we have to face this plot. We have to come before you and speak to you, give statements. We have to make sure that our families are safe. It disrupts our lives. This morning before my son went to school, I told him, you know, a little bit about what was going on, and I said, come outside and look at the top of the hill. And at the top of the hill, it was still fairly dark before dawn. There was a news van at the top of the mailbox where the mailboxes are located with two big bright spotlights on. And this is before most people rise. We get up and rise pretty early to say our prayers, and yet we have a news media van at the top of the hill with two bright lights on our community. That's disruptive. That's not normal. We understand that there's a job to be done, but these type of things cause disruption in our normal lives. Islamberg is not a hidden community. It's not a secretive community. If you drive down the road that leads to Holy Islamberg, you'll see anyone who purchased land on that road and any other neighboring rural road has property off the road. None of the properties are basically facing to the road. So you have to come down a long drive to reach our property. And people will write that it's a mysterious, or it's a secretive, or it's a hidden community. It's not. It's not. Over the years, we have fostered relationships with the local townspeople. You can ask them. Our children play in the sporting events. They know us. They know us very well. We've fostered over 30 years of relationships. One of the ones I'd like to speak about today is the relationship with law enforcement. They come to our sporting events with our scouts. They interact. They send their troopers up to give demonstrations and PowerPoint. You know, I mean, any one of our children, after they graduate, can go into law enforcement. And we do have members of our community and other locations that are part of the law enforcement in their areas. So we have built a good relationship with our community, and we've never planned to harm anyone. Speak to people who really know us, unlike those terrorists from outside who have been manipulated and brainwashed. Had they thought that there was something wrong or going on in our community, then they should have contacted law enforcement. Because if they had, they would have learned about the relationship that I just spoke about. No crimes have ever been committed here. The crime being committed is by those Islamophobes who plan to do harm to us, to our children, to our mothers, and to our fathers. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Attorney Tahira H. Clark, who will give you the legal perspective of the Muslims of America Incorporated.
Good afternoon. In April of 2015, Robert R. Doggett of Tennessee was arrested for convening a militia to commit murder and mayhem in Islamberg, New York. It has been almost 2 years since he was convicted for his crimes. So sadly, we are not unfamiliar with extreme right-wing racist or terroristic threats. Each time it happens, these grave tragedies compound the trauma of the previous instance. These 4 individuals and those who threaten people on the basis of their faith are terrorists. In fact, there should be no bail set for anyone being investigated for such a serious crime. Throughout our advocacy on behalf of the residents of Islamberg, we were shocked to learn that while there is a definition for domestic terrorism, it is not a federal crime. This is why we need policy change around the issue of domestic terrorism. It should be recognized as a federal crime and include a stiff penalty. We will not be silent as we assert the right to protect the people of all faiths from attack, not just the residents of Islamberg or American Muslims, but for everyone. During the pendency of Doggard's case, we worked closely with local and federal law enforcement and the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Tennessee. And we look forward to working with all law enforcement again toward advancing justice, particularly the Monroe County District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of New York. We are also here to assist victims, all victims, of religious-based hate crime. And finally, we urge parents to be vigilant. Know what your children are doing, particularly on social media, because many are being radicalized by hate by the right-wing domestic terrorists. What they are involved in is dangerous, and they could now face many years in prison. Feel free to stay in touch with us through the means that we will give at the end of the press conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Tahira H. Clark. We'd like to thank the media for joining us today, for accepting our invitation to our press conference. We do understand that you have a job to do, but as you see here, we are not shying away from the media. We are not shying away from making a statement, and we are not shying away from standing up to any threat. So if you, in the future, if at any point we come upon a situation where you would like to report it, we would like to direct you to our PR department, which I'm sure you have been in touch with, and we would like to come together and do what we're doing now. Once again, we thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the State Police, New York State Police, for your presence. I see Captain, I see Major, and a couple of sergeants. We thank you. These are the people who we work with and who we associate with on our daily lives, and they've never turned their backs on us. So I'd like to pay special thanks to them. And I believe I heard we have a representative from the governor's office here today, and we'd like to meet with you and talk to you. And I see some of the media who I've recognized from some of our other events. I'd like to thank you for coming. We're going to just take a few questions. Anybody sitting here, as well as myself, if you have a few questions, we'll give you your answers to the best of our ability. So we'll start taking questions. Pastor?
Thank you. Hi. Sorry about all this. I was wondering if you've noticed any uptick in social media, fake news recently. I've been watching the story for years, and I've noticed it goes up and down, it goes up and down. Lately, it seemed like it had sort of dissipated. I was wondering if you probably paying even more closely attention, whether you had any of that, and also whether there'd been an increase in threats over the phone or people driving by that you've noticed.
We haven't had any additional threats. It's interesting because we received a call this past Saturday, from state police informing us in the community that 5 individuals from Greece, New York, were arrested. Prior to that, it's been pretty quiet. You know, the community goes about, you know, from day to day working. You know, children are going to school. You know, social media. You know, the fake news and comments on social media. Personally, I don't pay too much attention to. You know, anybody else can speak on that.
We try not to pay too much attention to it, but oftentimes we cannot avoid it. And some of our neighbors and friends and co-workers will often point us towards things. We also have an interest in keeping abreast of those things that are said about our community, and lately we have not noticed an uptick.
Do you think the media handles attacks against Islamberg fairly, as opposed to attacks against other faiths? The coverage, the level of coverage?
No. Case in point, Robert Dogger. There was very little media attention. That was major news. Major news. And the media attention actually began after we stepped forward and did our own advocacy for our community and made everyone aware of what had taken place. There's also, if you notice the headlines in relation to the act, the headlines are often soft in depicting the perpetrator of the crime. That's not good. You do not see this happening when perhaps a Muslim is accused of committing a terrorist act, or an African American, or anyone else. It's not a balanced presentation of the news. And you guys have a lot of power in what you do. And with that power comes responsibility. And we are hoping that the same as we, the community of Islamberg, is stepping forward to help advocate and help push forward policy to make a change in this country, that in your work, you do the same.
Is CNN here, by the way? No? Nobody from CNN?
If one of the problems is that you're dealing with people who are, you're seeing online and, some of the websites and outlets perhaps that you think are not being rational in terms of looking at the facts in an even-handed manner, and beyond that, in terms of their sort of some of the more extreme versions and whatnot. If those people are not rational in listening to the facts, how do you counter their bias?
Well, we counter their bias by being the upstanding American citizens that we are. We counter their bias by holding interfaith events. We counter their bias by being contributing, participating, law-abiding members of the society. We counter their bias by being attorneys and representing not only members in our community, but members of our outlying community. We give them medical care. We teach their children. We do so many different things. And those who know us, those who care to really know about the residents of Islamberg and Muslims in America in general, they're not overcome by this bias and the imbalance of information and the defamation and the lies and the falsehoods that are published by people who don't really love this country.
What makes you say that?
If you love this country, and if you believed in its ideals, and if you understood that we are all created equal, and that we are all entitled to freedom of religion, to the pursuit of happiness, then you would not do that.
Mayor, you talked about talking with your children. Really, anybody can answer this, but how do you talk to your kids when something terrible like this happens and a threat is made? What can you tell them?
It's very difficult. You can.
Mayor, could you step to the mic, please? Could we ask you to come to the mic so we can hear you better? Thank you.
That's a very difficult task, but this time, unfortunately, we had something to reference. Because the first thing I said was, remember the Robert Dogger case? Remember when I spoke to you before about someone wanting to harm you? About someone wanting to kill you? About someone wanting to take your life? I said, well, it's happened again. And then I explained in more detail, and just to seeing the shock on their faces, it's very difficult to do. I'm sure some of you have children in here. Just go through it in your head and try to picture or try to understand or try to imagine what you would say. We don't teach these things to be violent. We don't teach these things to our children. We teach them to be law-abiding citizens, to uphold the honor thy neighbor. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So it's very difficult to tell them, we're teaching you to be good, and someone wants to do something bad to you.
Mayor, Islamberg is in a rural part of the area, of course, that Hancock area. State police are a few minutes away. God forbid that this radical plan were to take off. You guys said you were to stand up to it. We've noticed a security gate outside of it. Do you have your own law enforcement team that would be able to handle something such radical until state police were able to assist?
We're not law enforcement officers. And we're just citizens, just like everybody else. The gate you speak about, if you drive up and down the road, that rural road, every property owner has that gate. Every property owner has that. Now, if someone was to come onto our property, we would call law enforcement, and we would try to keep our children safe, go to a safe area, and do the best of our ability to try to stop that person from coming on and harming people. I have a job where the superintendent addressed and tried the entire construction crew, all the trades, and said, we need to come up with a solution for if we have an active shooter on this job site. What would we do? What would you do? So we have the same type of precaution. The first thing is get to safety, keep everybody safe, take accountability, and hopefully the law enforcement won't take that long to get there.
Is this something you're looking forward to, maybe get more security, unfortunately, because of this such radicalism?
Yes, we're hoping. We had a conversation with a representative from the governor's office yesterday. Very positive. They reached out to our community, and they were very open in wanting to discuss with us what can be done to assist our community, to help, provide some type of protection on a state level. So we will be meeting with them and discussing these things and other things so that we can, we're not about taking the law into our own hands. We're not about that. You understand? That's the purpose. That's why we have, established, such a relationship with law enforcement, so that we can communicate, we can collaborate. They contact us anytime they have an issue. We contact them anytime we have an issue. We meet, we eat, we discuss things, and then we, proceed accordingly afterwards.
Do you feel that state and federal authorities are doing enough to keep the people of Islamberg safe?
Well, what is enough?
Yeah.
What is enough? If you have an active shooter coming into our community, 1, 2, 3, 4 vehicles, yes, we call law enforcement, but at the same time, we have no plan on becoming a statistic.
I have a follow-up to that. Living in Delaware County as I do and you do, we both know that Sheriff Dumont has been outspoken in rebutting any of the fake news, various fake news suggestions. We know the state police have been outspoken. I know that when I talked to FBI privately, and I believe you've told me that when you talked to FBI privately, they said the same thing. We're not worried about you guys. We know this is a lot of nonsense.
Right.
Do you think the FBI could do more? Because they have such a large platform to do what state police and local authorities do, and just put it out there.
We're always looking for the FBI to do more, honestly. But it's something that they have a job and they have policies and procedures, and they have to go about the way they do things. And we understand that very well. So we'll reach out and continue to reach out to whom will hear us, whom will genuinely, provide some type. We want tangible results, in some of our dilemmas and situations.
If some of the suspects or all the suspects are able to post bail at some point, number one, do you think that's appropriate? And number two, what is your reaction to that if they're able to post bail?
Yeah, I think that I did address that. No, we do not think it's appropriate for them. We do not think that it's appropriate for them to be able to do that under these circumstances. And we would hope that it doesn't happen.
One of the suspects-
Reason being also, we don't know who else is out there. I mean, this was a real plot. I think, we weren't going to hold this press conference, but we were bombarded, literally, with media, and even, our interfaith partners and others who reached out to us, to find out from us, what are we going to do? What's the next move? So we said, we'll give a statement. We'll give a statement, we'll answer some questions and proceed from there. But it's a concern. It's a concern that, and I think the FBI made a statement or stated yesterday or a few days ago that they're looking into the possibility of any other individuals that were involved with the plot. So what are we supposed to do until then? But think about, put yourselves in our shoes. Think about how you would feel. You understand, if your children and your family members that leave that community every single morning, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, you understand, to go to work, to go to school, you understand, to serve our community, and have to be worried about this threat, this plot, that some lunatics would come through our community and bomb them as they go out.
So, considering that Islamberg was founded as an escape from the dangers and negative influences of the big city, do you feel that these threats, this climate, do you feel that it taints in any way the safe haven that you've created? And do you have any concerns about fear or cynicism influencing the community now?
No, and just quickly to, my response to that would be, we're a strong faith-based community. And look at the young child, look at the kid that overheard that plot. Whatever the discussion was that took place, the picture that came up on the phone, etc. We don't believe in coincidences in our religion. Everything happens and takes place at a fixed time and place, and it's perfectly planned by Almighty Creator. That for us, that child who did an excellent job in, coming forward and saying something after he heard something, it still is an act of God. And we're, that's our belief. You understand? That's how we have survived. And that's how we'll continue to survive. So yes, you know, the faith is there, but we still take the necessary precautions, you know, needed when necessary.
So how do you think this, having to face these threats, having to live through all of this, how do you think that fits into God's plan?
To live well, I mean, in the Holy Quran, it speaks about test and trial and tribulation that the believer would face, and how God Almighty tests the believers to raise them strengthen them and raise them in status. And we have, this is not, these are not words that we are guessing, or that we have lived this. We have experienced this. If you sit down with any one of these community members, that's Islamberg. This is Islamberg, that live and reside within this community. And just ask them, what was your experience throughout this Robert Dagger plot? Everybody has a lot to say. You understand how they made it, but it started with faith. You understand? It started with faith, and having faith, even all the way to the trial. Some members of media were here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We were there. But look, as quiet as it's kept, they didn't want us in the courthouse. They did not want us in the courthouse. But we were able to come, exercise our rights, show our presence, and humanize what they have dehumanized.
In the last 2 years, have you had trespassers or anything anyone enter the community?
Last 2 years, have we had trespassers enter?
Well, no major trespassing. We had people drive down a road and say they're lost. We've had people ask to turn around in the driveway or come and take pictures, but as far as trespassing to cause any harm, I wouldn't say we've had that. We've just had people who look online and reading the social media and want to see what Islamberg is or where it is, you know, and they come, they take pictures at the sign. That's why it's a little disturbing when we see vehicles at the top of the road, is why we approach and ask you to meet us somewhere or talk to our PR department, because that's one of the things we're looking out for since Robert Doggett, and a little before that, is vehicles that we don't know, that don't belong to community members parked at the top. So we'll take 3 more questions and then we'll close things out.
You've spoken to this already, but do you have a message for conservative media like Alex Jones and that's portrayed Islamberg as being this militant compound that is a risk to the wider community?
Well, I can't invite them to a whole Islamberg now because of what they have done and all the incitement they have done with these plots. But maybe they should have come. Maybe they should have disguised themselves somehow and come to one of our events. Come to see the children. Come to see how we live, our homes, and see that we're regular law-abiding citizens, and see that we have been and never will cause any harm. These people, it's not just Alex Jones, it's Ryan Morrow, there's a few others, Martin Moyer. They write books, and they have these websites that you go to, and they put all this falseness on there. And these are the things, if you said, like Pashman had said, do you think the FBI could do more? They need to reach in there and stop these people from pushing their Islamophobic agenda all across the social media. How many other people are reading these things, plotting something, or feeling that their civil liberties are being violated because we're living in this country with them? How many people are there feeling like that?
Follow up on that one, if I can keep. Facebook has been instrumental in circulating these. Have you been in touch with Facebook at all in the last few years about pulling down pieces of fake news and so on? It seems like they have, in any case, somewhat, but did they ever reach out to you?
You know, Facebook has never reached out to us. I know that.
Have you reached out to them?
Yes, we have reached out to them, and we've also worked with some of our allies to assist in that. There are other
CAIR-
advocacy
CAIR-
organizations who are working very strongly to get Facebook and other social media platforms to be more vigilant in the information, a lot of the false information that is being allowed to, fester on social media.
Has it worked for you?
Well, here we are. I don't think so.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I see some of our interfaith partners, Nancy, and some of the others that are in the audience. We'd like to thank you for coming, supporting us like you always support us. The rabbi is here. Oh, yep. We'd like to thank you for coming and supporting us. We'll stay around for a little while if you have any questions. There's a few people that we'd like to talk to and we'll reach out to. But thank you for accepting our invitation to this press conference and wish you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.